Chapter 33. In the middle of the year, de Zhuge chose an auspicious day to hold his son's coronation at the ancestral temple. What was unusual was that the coronation of the eldest son of the king of Bailiang was not as grand as that of a wealthy family. Not only were there few guests invited, even His Royal Highness's 2 sisters and 1 brother did not attend. After the refreshed Su Fengnian was led into the imperial ancestral temple by Su Xiao, he was crowned 3 times. A black hempcloth crown, a white deerskin crown, and a red and black plain crown. The 3 small crowns on Su Fengnian's head attracted too much attention. The first crown was what all of the court officials of the Liang dynasty cared about, because it represented that His Royal Highness could enter the court. The second crown was more practical and lasting, because the 300,000 cavalry of Bailiang were waiting. As for the third crown, it only had some symbolic meaning and was not taken seriously. His Royal Highness had been busy all day, his face stiff. After bowing to the officials of Bailiang border who came to the fu, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He enjoyed the tea and water served by the personal maids of Wutong Garden and massaged his shoulders, back, and legs. After a good rest, Su Fengnian finally took care of his hair and clothes. Finally, he went to the Wang Fei's tomb with Su Xiao. A pair of tall green and white jade lions were vivid and lifelike, both in the shape of young lionesses. The lioness on the right was protecting 3 young lions, symbolizing the Wang Fei and her 3 children. The young lions were the eldest daughter Su Jihu, the second daughter Su Weisheng, and the youngest son Su Longxiang. The lioness on the left just lowered her head and kissed one of the young lions. The Wang Fei's love and affection for her eldest son Su Fengnian had no end in life or in death. Su Fengnian stood in front of the stone lions, his eyes red. The great pillar of the country, Su Xiao, sighed softly. Every time the young Fengnian felt wronged, he would sneak here and stay the whole night. No matter how cold or hot it was, he never fell sick. The tomb of the princess consort was surrounded by 2 walls made of white jade, forming the image of a city within a city. The main divine path was 600 feet long. According to the rules, there were only 9 types of stone beasts placed on both sides of the Emperor Divine Path, but there were 14 types here. There were nearly 100 stone carvings, all of which were full of vigor and vigor. They were linked together and had an imposing aura. Other than that, the height of the mausoleum and the scale of the underground palace far exceeded that of any of the vassals in the dynasty. Furthermore, the mausoleum was constructed with a dressing table and 2 maids' tombs that were unique and unprecedented. When the mausoleum was first built, it was criticized by countless people. The emperor's imperial study was filled with impeachment memorials almost overnight, but they were all suppressed and ignored. The crippled de Zhuge stood silently in front of the grave. After Su Fengnian paid his respects, he squatted in front of the grave and said softly, "Father, I'll stay a little longer." De Zhuge said gently, "Don't catch a cold. Your mother will be worried." Su Fengnian grunted in acknowledgement. The king of Bailiang walked on the main divine path and counted silently in his heart. It was exactly 365 steps. This one and only de Zhuge, who was powerful enough to overturn the court, clearly remembered that when he first entered the court and received his title, he walked from the red-painted door to the door of the Kuan-ji Hall. The first time he was young and vigorous, he walked 284 steps. Later on, when he got older and was crippled, he walked more and more, slower and longer, but he never exceeded 365 steps. After 40 years of military service, he had reached his current position. Su Xiao had a clear conscience and did not fear the heavens, the earth, or the gods. De Zhuge walked out of the main divine path and turned his head to look. That child was definitely humming that little song, the Ballad of the Spring Goddess, which the child's mother had taught him. Su Xiao thought of the secret letter that had been urgently delivered to his desk last night in the middle of the night. He was hesitant about whether to hand it over or not. Fengnian had just turned 20, so this letter came at a very bad time. The king of Bailiang walked along the small path to the top of Mount Qingliang. He seemed to be alone, but there were actually countless hidden sentries along the way. Not to mention the carefully selected valiant soldiers in the army, there were 3 first-rank masters who were only 2 ranks away from the great Grand Master realm. Su Xiao believed that his head was still worth some gold. When he was young, he felt that dying on the battlefield and being taken away by the enemy was not a big deal. It was also a happy thing to be buried in horsehide. The higher the rank of nobility, the more he cherished it. This was not purely because he was afraid of death, But because Su Xiao had always believed that the glory and splendor he had today was all because of his countless brothers risking their lives. If he went to the underworld too early, he would be letting down those brave souls who were buried so hastily north and south of the Great River. Especially since most of these people had families and families, he had to take care of them to be at ease. A tall tree attracts the strong wind, and a fallen tree attracts the strong wind. Aristocratic families were no different from dynasties. He walked into the Yellow Crane Tower, which was a bit cold and cheerless. He climbed to the top of the mountain and then climbed to the top of the tower, just like this prince with a different surname, who had lived a splendid life. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, and did not pat the railings with his hands behind his back, just looking at the night view of the city. He had 2 sons and 2 daughters, 300,000 steel cavalry under his command, 6 adopted sons, martial art masters in the prince's mansion were as numerous as the clouds, countless advisors and think tanks, his disciples and old officials spread throughout the imperial court, from top to bottom. One by one, his secret chess pieces were placed in all directions. Of course, there were also countless political enemies. Wasn't that little girl surnamed Fan a blind sparrow who walked right into the trap? However, Su Xiao was too lazy to care about such small characters. Bailiang's military affairs were already busy enough. Every few years, there would be smoke rising from the border, but most of it was personally lit by him. He also had to deal with the rustling of leaves in the wind in the imperial city. He had long since forgotten about the affairs of Jianghu. Su Xiao rubbed his hands together. He accidentally remembered a poem he heard when he was young. Unfortunately, he could only remember fragments. He could not remember what he saw in the imperial city. However, Su Xiao always remembered the last line, 50 years of great work, tell the mountain ghosts. Standing in the empty corridor of the Yellow Crane Tower, Su Xiao waited until the dawn of the eastern sky. Only then did he say softly, "Yin, send the letter to Feng Nian. After all, he has already gone through his coronation." There was no overt response. Su Xiao patiently waited for the sun to rise from the east. The Pillar Country had 12 elite men of sacrifice, using the 12 earthly branches as code names. When the eldest son, Su Fengnian, was born, he began to train another group of men of sacrifice for his descendants, named after the heavenly stems. Unfortunately, he had only trained for so far. During his son's travels, 2 more died in battle. Gathering the 10 men of A, B, C, D, Wu, Ji, Gung, Xian, Ren, and Gue was becoming more and more distant. Fortunately, the Pillar State was very satisfied with the 2 special chess pieces other than the heavenly stems men of sacrifice. The oldest of these children was no more than 25 years old, and the youngest was only 12 years old. They were secretly trained with great financial and material resources. Perhaps their martial arts were not as good as the lower first pin masters, but their killing techniques were not bad at all. Only by killing could one save. Su Xiao was more convinced of this than anyone else. When Su Xiao went downstairs, he asked, "Ugly, can Yuan Zuozong be convinced by my son? What about Chen Zhibao?" In the dark, a hoarse voice like a blunt knife grinding stone came. "My lord, no." Su Xiao rubbed his temples and smiled. "If this king remembers correctly, Chen Zhibao saved your life in the battle of Princess Luo Yang's tomb. With such a friendship, don't you know how to smooth things over for him? Aren't you afraid that he will suddenly die today?" Silence. Loyalty, filial piety and righteousness. In Bailiang, this order could not be messed up. Whoever messed up would die. If Ugly, who was destined to hide behind the scenes forever, smoothed things over for Chen Zhibao, it was nothing more than a small matter of sacrificing one more life. Su Xiao's thoughts were unpredictable. He said to himself, "Villain butcher."